Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and you know what? It is my mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap, and today we're taking a look at A Way Out by Hazelight Studios. A Way Out has you follow along the world's worst tag team, Vincent and Leo, both seemingly cut from the criminal cloth and thrown together by circumstance. They must work together to escape prison and then take revenge on those that wronged them. Now, unlike most co-op games, A Way Out is forced co-op, meaning you can't play alone at all. To offset that a bit, only one person needs to have a copy of the game, whether you're online, of course, or local, which means after a quick invite, you'll be split-screening your way through Prison Break, the Rowboat Edition, lickety-split. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you liked the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for A Way Out. Yo dog, I heard you like split screen, the world's worst motorbike drivers, and Army of Two Paisley Edition. Graphics are up first. While not the prettiest game to look at, one of the things that A Way Out does well is it pushes an impressive lighting engine, which does a wonderful job saturating areas of depleted prisons in yellow and white light of flickering underpowered bulbs 1 second, while then absolutely friggin' blinding you with a searchlight the next. Or sedate walkthroughs, where one of the characters has a local hometown area and that incredibly well done lighting that seems painted with a paintbrush that's dipped in nostalgia in 1970s designs. It is very well done lighting, depending on if you're in a natural area or an artificial one. Spectacular work there. If there's one thing that the game does miss at times, though, it's the animation, as it can go from incredibly detailed, like the way you sit down on a motorbike and flip it sideways into a turn and sit back on it for extra weight. Or better yet, the grab-assy hands of prison guards looking for an entire Sears store worth of tools that you've shoved down your pants like you have a love affair with craftsmen. Those are moments that look almost real, and collision detection and just animation for all those little elements is done well, and that excellence is usually mimicked in most of the cutscenes. Unfortunately, there are times where the game hits some snags, and one of them is actually in battle moments, where moving into and out of cover and rolling for dodging look almost like they're from a completely different game. They're a bit janky and rough and don't really look as developed as everything else. Additionally, when you're walking into the lobby of a hospital, sometimes you see a character standing in the corner of a waiting room like Ricky Bobby trying to figure out where he should put his hands in the scene. Luckily, those moments are few and far in between, and the game really isn't particularly battle heavy, but some of the moments are sheer brilliance here. Boat chases, car chases, spear and fish, escaping prisons, and paddling your way through a co-op version of Deliverance where Burt Reynolds was replaced by an extra from Grease. Those are moments where the game really does deliver, especially when you feel that atmosphere of a dirty, nasty prison all around you, or the elements of nature when you're out and about in the forest levels. Just really some epic overall set pieces here. And I have to mention the main characters themselves. Leo and Vincent are just messed up enough looking to be real people, with Leo leading the way with a nose that screams "stay away from my cocaine" and a hawk brow that at times makes him look a bit like some kind of broken NBA 2K18 creative character. It's not only in the fine texture work that we see throughout the entire game and mostly well done animation, but it's also in their presence on the screen and how the camera works. The game does a fine job presenting both characters' viewpoints while switching from vertical to horizontal split screen, then fading away to just one character for a moment at a poignant point in the story when it comes up. Now on the console, the game is a solid 1080p and 30 FPS on the Xbox One and PS4, while on the Pro and Xbox X, you can choose to run the game in either performance or graphics mode. And honestly, due to the way the game plays and runs already, it is almost always better to run this game in performance mode. The differences are negligible in the end, and the frame rate is much better on performance, while in graphics mode, there are a number of times where you can see that FPS take a bit of a hit. It's one of the few games where the difference is so small that it's something that honestly you can probably ignore. On the PC, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to check it out. As a package, I would just say this. A Way Out really does look phenomenal. Most of that helped by excellent texture work, of course the character work, and a really keen sense of presentation. It is unfortunately held back by a couple performance issues and the occasional wonky animation. Sound, music, and voice.
You're not gonna hear me say this often, but thanks. You too, Leo. You know what?
And you know what? Let's do music first. At times, there is almost, I would say, a desperado element to the music here, with thin tracks and repetitive guitar strums that really do almost lead you to feel like this is a Western movie pushed into the 1970s. Then, just as you get accustomed to those, they flit out to more synth-driven moments that really do have a crime drama feel to them. Then, just when you think you sort of have the soundtrack nailed down, it moves across into larger, almost orchestral sounding tracks when big-budget movie moments happen. Now, I can see the complaint that some may have where this can feel a little bit all over the place when it comes tonally to the soundtrack, but for me, there was nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it helped the track sort of elevate beyond the typical synth-driven drone that we hear in some action games. Overall, I absolutely love the music here. And that brings us to sound. Bravo. First, there is something I worried about prior to the game's release I've talked about before, and it's how do you do sound when two players are playing split screen and can do cutscenes at the same time, and how does it really work? How does that play out, and how does it give information to the gamer? The game uses a heavy amount of filtering and layering during those moments to fade out prominent vocals for one person and fade them in for another. But it's the later gunfights that ensue where the echo and reverb of locations with occlusion done incredibly well that absolutely nails the feeling of anarchy there. Just really good sample work. Now this carries over for the most part to explosions as well as all the other sounds. When in local co-op, it is a bit more muddy since of course you're sitting right next to the person hearing another character speak or gunfire go off, and it can take a bit to sort of become accustomed to the sound of two characters fighting played through the surround sound. But this is something that we've heard in any split screen game. It's just, this is one of the first ones where it's truly narrative driven, so it can take a moment for you to come up to grips with what's actually occurring. Voice. This might be one of the only games where I like all the character voices, and yeah, that even includes the kid, because let's be honest, getting a child actor to sound right is a mixture of well done writing and luck, and the fact is that a lot of times it just sounds a little bit creepy. Here, every single character is good, even down to a random nurse walking you through a hallway or a security guard questioning his own memory while sharing an elevator ride with you. Vincent and Leo are perfectly executed here as well, and kudos to them. I have to say, while you don't see it all the way through due to the circumstances, especially at the ending, the sound of true emotion and stress absolutely comes through. Bravo to both of the main voice actors who nailed this, to the tune of making me have difficulty choosing my favorite between the two. Gameplay, and a bit about the story. A Way Out follows the misadventures of Leo and Vincent, two criminals who, through a series of flashbacks and current actions, escape from prison so that they can unleash holy hell on their enemies. To tell that tale, the game plays out like a third-person action game with the occasional driving and shooting elements added, but it wholly focuses on the narrative storytelling as delivered through the game's unique split-screen system, which sees you playing split-screen almost the entire time, sometimes leading the other characters to places they can't see at their level, or other times figuring out small locational puzzles, and even other times trying to see if you can shoot an enemy so many times his head could be used as a shot put. And it's the camera work there that's so seamless that really does help this along. The game also hinges on the decisions the two main characters make and focal points, resulting in moments where the two players are at opposing odds as to what to do, which might also be a little bit at opposing odds to what the characters want to do, and each character will give a brief idea of why they think their choice is the best, and then you are sort of left to choose. I love that mechanic. It worked well, it was fleshed out enough to feel impactful to the main story, and it really never slowed anything down. It's also important to note that overall this game is about the journey and not the destination. Many of your choices are overlaid into relatively few endings. Now, this might not please some gamers, but unlike many games that do this, A Way Out chooses the moments it puts decision-making into your hands so that it falls together well, even if a bit predetermined at the end. It is something that you should expect. And the game, I would say, for the most part, excels throughout its 5-hour time frame, telling the story both from the separate and combined storylines of the two main characters. It's the mending that works so well here. When you start the game, each player chooses one of the characters to be. Are you a smartass, quick to anger, or are you a bit more wise, a bit more subtle in the way you do things? And this plays out in the game at all times, from characters who flatly won't give you the information you need when you need it unless the other player asks, to actions being added depending on who you end up engaging a character with. Also, A Way Out loves its switch-ups. For example, you might be playing split screen vertical, and then the game fades over to show a brief interlude for one of the characters, and then it fades into a chase scene where you leap and run and dashing and smashing your way through locations, and as you round a corner, the game almost seamlessly transitions to the other player. Taking control of that character, you might fight, and then behind you, you'll see a bank of security cameras, and the game's view shoots into those cameras and into the character that was on that screen. It is phenomenal stuff, and for the most part, it's done incredibly well. Now, I've talked about this many times. It's nice to have a game that has a particular gimmick and treats it more as a feature than a bullet point. We've seen this happen all the time, but A Way Out is solidly in the mindset of showing that this kind of narrative swap can work, it does it brilliantly, and it does it with a judicious hand, which means that it never feels like it's just a separate part of the game or that everything's hinging on that. Now, that doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows here. First, the game cribs heavily from a couple movies, and when I say heavily, I mean there are a couple scenes where you're going to sit back and go, damn, really? Also, the gun shooting elements never really feel that good, and the guns never really feel that tight, and the enemies become strange bullet sponges later on, which is a bit weird when you smash Frank, the local bad guy bodyguard, with 3 clips of ammo, and he trucks through it like a friggin' Terminator. I will say that overall it barely happens. Guns aren't the biggest part of this game anyway, and so I'm okay with that. That being said, A Way Out is almost genius at times. When it's hitting on all cylinders, it's easily one of the most narrative-rich titles that have been released in the last couple years. And yes, it is true that much of it can feel a bit like Life is Strange, but replace Chloe and Max with 2 dudes bent on making sure their enemies feel fear whenever Paisley is around them. I loved those times. At other times, it can fall apart a bit. One is the performance, as I mentioned earlier. The other is the familiarity many will feel while playing the game when comparing it to some elements of, let's say, some popular movies. And of course, that brings us to fun factor. It was fun. I do have to say the last couple moments of the game fell apart a bit for me, and it wasn't the narrative, which I've explained before. It's just that for a moment it goes loud, removing the vocal suppressors from these dudes' mouths and having them just run through levels shooting the shit out of everyone. That's when it's at its weakest. Luckily, that's very rare. I also love the fact that they focused on playing these 2 main characters, and to me it's the brilliance of those characters that works so well. It isn't about a massive number of characters on the side and how everyone interacts and experiences situations. It's about Leo and Vincent, and side characters are there on the side to tell you the story of these 2 characters, their partnership, and for better or worse, their friendship, and I liked that. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating system. This one's a difficult one because of the price, but the fact that you can also play it co-op where you only need 1 copy is phenomenal, and I have to say this is a buy. It is an incredibly enjoyable game, really well done narrative, and it's a title that I'll easily play twice without any hesitation. So that's it for me. As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike it, give it a thumbs down. Maybe check out Reddit or Twitter. And of course, you can become a patron, which always helps me do reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. The link will be in the description and also the first comment on this video. And as always, I buy every single game I review, even if a developer gives me a code. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.